Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn show with me, Andrew Eborn, and my very special guest today is the wonderful Eve Tawfik. How are you, Eve?
Hello, Andrew. Always lovely to be with you. I'm Eve Tawfik. For those of you who don't know, I'm a UK journalist and broadcaster. I've worked with Andrew on Talk and some other shows, so it's very good to be here.
It's an absolute. We've shared more platforms than Paddington, is what we always say, isn't it?
We have indeed, yes, we have.
It's wonderful. No, just remind everybody, it's an unusual name, Tawfik, isn't it? Where does it come from?
I'm half Scottish, half Egyptian.
And what does it mean? Because words have meanings, don't they?
Yeah, so Tawfik, it's normally actually spelled Tawfik instead of with a C. I've got the anglicized version of the name, and it means success or to have success.
How good is that? That's what you want.
But
Is there
something
is there an equivalent for failure?
um there probably is, but I'm not sure many parents want to give their children that
I
name.
think that's understandable. That's how they used to do it, isn't it? They used to name them after professions and stuff like that, which is good.
Exactly.
Now you've built a really impressive career in journalism, working, as you say, with a number of outlets and BBC, Daily Mail, Talk TV, where you and have worked together, and also things like The Sun and so on and so forth. How's your passion for the industry evolved across print, broadcast, and editing roles?
I'm really loving broadcasting because I think that's one place where you can be yourself, you can share opinions, you can also connect with other people in different ways, like people who wouldn't necessarily you would talk to in a right-wing paper, you're going to meet, during a broadcasting stint. But I find print media has changed. There's a lot of AI involvement. It's getting a bit more dull, a bit more focused on, what's trending on TikTok. That's not always what people want to read. They want to watch it on TikTok, but they don't want to read an article written about something on TikTok, which I'm finding sadly to be a trend, especially among female-based journalism, which I think is quite sad. Yeah, and that saddens me as a female journalist because I want to see, stories about powerful women and really interesting topics. What about you? What do you think? Do you think there's been a shift?
Oh, well, I think absolutely. I think it's attention span more than anything, isn't it? Because in this TikTok generation, everybody's on to the next story. You click, you swipe, you don't do that sort of stuff. Matt Damon was doing a podcast fairly recently about the changes that have happened in feature films as a result of it. The script writers now have to sort of repeat what the story is, who the characters are every other scene, and there's a car chase or an explosion just to keep people's attention.
Exactly, and it's films like Good Will Hunting, you know.
Oh, we've lost your voice. Your voice has disappeared. Hello, you've disappeared with your voice. I don't know what's happened there.
That's probably a good
There
that's
we go. You
probably
were
a
just
good
talking about
thing.
goodwill hunting and how important it is to have a voice. And as soon as that happened, you lost yours.
That's it. No, but the thing with Good Will Hunting and films like that, which they don't have explosions, and it's all about this moral message and this really emotive ending that has now been parodied to death, and I can no longer take seriously. Thank you, Family Guy. But films like that, I don't feel they capture audiences as well as they used to, especially younger audiences. But I don't want to put them all in the same box. I'm sure there are younger audiences who love films like that. I just think we are being trained as a society to like, that quick fix, that quick hit.
And you're absolutely right. And I go and see everything that comes out, including down at the big festivals, and for all the special effects in this world, and they are fantastic. They are a visual feast. Some of these movies, what's lacking is a really good story.
That's what they were saying about the new Avatar. Have you seen the new Avatar?
It goes on forever, doesn't it? I think it's still running. It's
I know, yeah. I mean, I was in the like a skeleton sitting there in the
yeah.
chair with my popcorn and my drink, just like, rotting away by the end. But I loved it because I'm an Avatar fan. But they could have cut about, a good third and maintained the level of story, but the special effects were not to be
It's
believed.
sensational. And if you look at it, there are very few movies that can justify being over 2 hours in length.
I think that's, and I think Cameron, he's done a bit of a George Lucas. He's very much become, James Cameron loves James Cameron, and if someone says, I don't think many people are saying no to him, and he wants to push the boundaries. What can we do in air? We've done that now, so let's see what we can do in water. And who has the money to spend on those kind of effects? He's really gone to town. But I still will watch the next one. That's the thing. We're all still going to go and watch it, aren't
You
we?
don't want to miss out. It's that FOMO, isn't it? The fear of missing out. You've got to go and see it.
That's
But
it.
no, I'd recommend. So there's some great story ones at the moment. Rental Family is one of my favorite at the moment, about life in Japan and so on and so forth.
Oh yes, definitely.
And that's really good. And there's some Song Blue as well. I enjoyed that, with their sort of tribute band and so on and so forth. So there are some great movies out there, but certainly look at doing the story first. And talking of stories, I mean, you've covered everything from human interest to crime stories and so on and so forth. What's been the most rewarding or challenging aspect of your particular story hunting?
Oh gosh. So I love doing the male sex crime in Jamaica. So that was really interesting, about older white females paying to have a young black Jamaican man for the night, and their husbands willing to pay for it as part of a fantasy, and fetishizing black males. And talking to these men, when it came to tourism season, they knew that money was in, but again, it's very sad. It's sort of, again, you've got this dynamic where there are white people paying black people for services, and they're almost there's still an element there where there is a master and somebody who is paid, and I don't like that. I'm all for exploring sexuality and people enjoying sexuality, but as far as fetishizing a race goes to fulfill a need, I do feel that borders on some kind of racism element there that needs to be discussed. And I was glad to bring that to the forefront when I worked for the Daily Mail. I've also just finished a documentary which will come out in March. That is about the murder of Natasha Moray, 40 years old, murdered by a man she knew. Very harrowing story, and her family have been brave enough to talk about the issue as well. So that's been really rewarding to be a part of that. And I commend her family for, coming forward and really, I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk about, if it was my brother or mother that was murdered, I couldn't talk about it. So well done to them.
Absolutely, and people see these things, and they can so often relate. And where you have somebody who's willing to talk about these appalling, horrendous circumstances, and what happens is people will always come forward and say, "Well, I'm so pleased that they did talk about it because they thought that
Yeah.
they were alone," and clearly they're not alone. There are others who go through similar things.
Exactly, and a great example of that one actually is at the moment started, it's in its very baby infant stages. I'm starting a podcast called Messy Women, which you are welcome to join as a male, and talk about issues. It's not just for female issues, but I suffer from endometriosis, and it has seeped into every area of my life. I've enlisted the help of my local MP, Terry Jeremy, and he's also the ambassador for Target Ovarian Cancer. And he wants to sort of help get me in front of the right people to discuss the pathway from diagnosis to treatment. There is still such a long pathway, a good 5 to 10 years between women getting diagnosed and treated, often ignored, dismissed, belittled. I was told by a female GP, oh, it's just period pains, when I couldn't walk. I've had periods since I was 12 years old. I know what a period pain is. I've given birth to 2 children. I also know what pain is. To belittle someone's lived experience because you find it incredulous that a period pain could make someone so debilitated that they cannot move is ignorant, especially for a health professional. I've received judgment at the hands of health professionals. I've had to beg, cajole, harass in order to get, looked at, MRIs, operations, you name it. And there comes a point where the NHS say, well, there's nothing more we can do for you.
Yeah,
We can offer you medical
and we
menopause.
look at this sort of stuff, and as you say, endometriosis, it affects millions. Yet patients, obviously women, frequently report not being believed by health care professionals.
Yes.
It leads to years and years of delayed diagnosis and suffering. For those who don't know what endometriosis is, explain in a sort of layperson's terms.
Um, So essentially, forgive me, Mr. Prosser Snelling, who is my surgeon. He's one of the UK's few experts, as well as Mr. Mohamed Mabrook, both of whom I've spoken to. Forgive me if I get this wrong or any part of it wrong. So essentially, parts of the womb lining migrate and attach to other parts of the body, say the bowel. They can migrate as far as the heart. I had endometriosis on my bowel and my diaphragm. So, and then when you bleed and you have your period, obviously you're getting pain drawn from these places, and it feels like there's a metal claw inside of you. The pain can also radiate down your hips and to your knees. It's still a mystery to a lot of medics, the condition itself. So, the more surgeries you have, there's always a risk that more adhesions, as they're called, and endometriosis adhesions can tear away and attach to other body parts. So each surgery carries that risk. It can also pair with a lesser known condition called adenomyosis, which is where the womb lining wraps around the organ itself, almost like a tennis ball, and it sort of looks blown up and oversized, like it's about to burst. And that can also come in stages, like endometriosis. Um, the two conditions push and pull against each other. So the types of pain you're getting are, you've got one clawing, pulling pain and another grinding, pushing pain like this internally. It manifests differently in different women, and it can cause different levels of disability within different women. And there's a lot of awareness, but I want awareness to turn into action because of intermediate diseases that aren't fatal, or aren't things like diabetes or asthma, which the NHS is very good at, or emergency care, again, something the NHS is good at. They often get left by the wayside, and we're lying on wards getting given painkillers up to a point, and then we're told you've had too many painkillers now. That's your lot. Enough, and just waiting for surgery, as if we haven't got lives or children to attend to. And I find that to be unfair. I'd be willing to pay privately if it were reasonable. Currently, it's £8,000 for a hysterectomy. Um, if this were to be sorted, and I think a lot of women would agree.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, it's very brave of you to talk about these things. It is raising awareness. What is the treatment? Is it just that you have to have a hysterectomy, or are there alternatives?
Hysterectomy is often the end of the line when everything else hasn't worked. You can take a drug called Provera, which is artificial progesterone, and that stops the cycle that's meant to stop you from bleeding. Or you can have an injection of Provera, so that's sort of your first step. You can also take something called tranexamic acid, which clots the blood so you're not bleeding so heavily. Then there's medical menopause, which puts you into menopause, which comes with its own set of issues. That can react quite badly with some women, but often it's touted by the NHS as this amazing, come on, have your medical menopause. What's the problem? There's that one. And if that doesn't work and you can only have that for 6 months, then it's surgery. So removal of adhesions and then hysterectomy.
And what I mean is obviously incredibly painful that from the descriptions that you've outlined. Why do you think there's this disbelief? Why does that persist?
That really concerns me. And I've heard from the mouths of nurses and doctors that if you go into A&E with endometriosis symptoms, it comes down to the triage. If the triage nurse does not believe in your condition, then you will be deprioritized on the A&E list. And then that starts, you'll get your pain relief later. It's also, I read a book called Unwell Women, which was very helpful. Female pain is often disbelieved in general. It's seen as female pain is minimized, and male pain is often treated with better painkillers quicker, and they are believed more readily and easily than females. I don't know why this is. That's something I would like to change. But women suffer too. And just because we do give birth and have periods does not mean we are immune to pain. We are not super women. We are for doing that, but we are not super women. We do have pain receptors and they react to pain.
Yeah, and a lot of people may not necessarily know the name endometriosis. Talk to me about the symptoms and what people should do if they have those symptoms.
So the symptoms often start, you get a bloated stomach. So I've bloated up to the point where I've looked 8 months pregnant and been offered a seat on a train. Um, Actually, there's a pregnant woman standing. Please offer her the seat. No, it's just endometriosis. True story. So bloated stomach, heavier periods than normal, changes in your cycle, even changes in your hair. Like your hair can get greasier easily. So even if you're washing it daily, you can notice by the end of the day that it's getting a bit greasier. A grinding pain in your hips that comes along with your periods, back pain that comes with your periods that isn't usual. So this was sort of the initial symptoms that I noticed. And as the disease progresses, the pain tends to increase, and then comes the other issues like not being able to walk, being bedbound, very heavy bleeding. But heavy bleeding often comes, from the onset. But there is a difference between having heavy periods and having endometriosis. The endo is the slang term that we call it within the groups. You have a thicker womb lining in general, so you are going to have a heavier period. There are some women who have endometriosis, have a thicker lining, have a heavy period, and never take a painkiller. And there are some who have a tiny adhesion and can't walk.
Yeah, and so advise people watching this who think that they may have endometriosis. What advice would you give them to make sure that they're taken seriously?
That's what I was just thinking. The way to be taken seriously. Be persistent. Don't take no for an answer. If you have a GP who is dismissive or rude, switch GPs. I had to switch surgeries to be taken seriously. Don't just let them palm you off to A&E constantly. If you have a consultant who doesn't want to test your hormones, which is what I had, go to another consultant. It is within your right to choose your doctor. A lot of people don't know that. You don't have to accept one doctor's word. You can go for another doctor. And this may sound controversial, but I found it's actually been male doctors who have been more sympathetic and proactive in my treatment than some female doctors. Strangely, again, I don't want to generalize at all, but that's just what I found. But yeah, change consultants, keep banging on doors, and if it keeps being an issue, go to your MP, as I have, and say this isn't right. I need a diagnosis, or I still haven't had an MRI. I mean, even getting to the point where you have an MRI can be difficult. You need to really push for those referrals. If you're not being believed, then I suggest you print off some literature, even a news article, and slam it in front of your GP and say, I have these symptoms, please do something about it. It is affecting my quality of life. That is something that GPs respond to, quality of life. If it is affecting that, that is the key term. So if they do not respond to that phrase, then quite frankly, they are unempathetic and they should reconsider their profession.
Okay, and they can also refer to the Andrew Eborn show where they got the wonderful Eve Tawfik talking
That's it.
about it as
And
well.
and I don't mean to be disparaging about doctors, by the way. I am a doctor's daughter, so I can make tongue-in-cheek comments about doctors like that.
There
I
are some
don't. Yeah,
fantastic doctors who do amazing work as they do in the
exactly.
NHS, absolutely. And all it is, look, it's highlighting. I always say that my only mistress is the truth. And all we want to do
Yes.
is get issues discussed in the public so we can try and find solutions. And often I will give a platform to the underdog or voices they've not necessarily heard. And if we can make a difference in this world, that's got to be good, doesn't it?
That's it. And I think with the NHS, I don't think it's individual doctors, being honest. I mean, I have had instances of that, but overall, I think they're underpaid, underfunded. They need more resources, more training, more expertise within subjects like endometriosis. I mean, Mr. Mabrook, he's a legend throughout the endometriosis community. He's done stuff throughout Europe, and he's brought his expertise back to the UK. And he's taught my surgeon, Mr. Snelling, and hopefully the word will get out. There'll be more training on this, more awareness. But I just hope it becomes something more than just awareness. That's my concern, that there'll be little action on that front, and we want action.
Yeah, no, well, keep us posted on all of that. Another big
Okay.
issue which you've been talking about a lot is the cost of living squeeze.
Yeah.
And so, talk to me about what sort of personal or observed experiences have led you to feel this way, especially with rising rents and taxes and everyday expenses and so on and so forth.
There's a couple of things. So this week I was reading The Spectator, and it was talking about, I've got it here, Gus Carter and Rupert Hawksley on the cost of living it up crisis, the boring 20s. So, the way that we're living now, and how we're not maximizing Britain's potential as a country. Malta fought to be part of the United Kingdom back in 1956, but Kemi's not listening to the backbenchers about how to maximise the potential of Britain. And I think the lure of living here has much declined. We have prices that are ludicrous in shops for everyday items such as cucumbers, and wages such as £100,000 that are being said not enough to raise a baby. I mean, there was the couple, Matthew and Nicole Griffiths. They were both on £100,000 and said they were too broke to raise a child and have a child. That seems ludicrous in a G7 nation. I mean, what are your thoughts on that
Well,
one?
so they've got 200 grand coming in.
Yeah.
Of that, I guess they're left with maybe about 120 grand. Yeah, you have a look at what they've got to spend it on. Most people's biggest expense is actually things like mortgages and so on and so forth. And people have done the calculation to bring up a child. At one stage, a few years ago, they said worked out it was about 250,000 to bring up a child, and that's for your net income. And it's putting it out because most people, when they say 200 grand, they would dream of having those sort of figures. And I think what you need to do,
Exactly.
and what I love about, I always say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. We need to set it out. Say, look, this is what it costs to have a lifestyle. This is what it costs to live in central London, to hop on transport all the time, to pay council tax, to pay your rent, and how much you actually left with at the end of it. That's the key, isn't it?
This is the issue, I think. That's exactly what you're saying is the issue. I mean, I think the ONS said last year that we had 195,000 people under 35 who left the UK seeking greener pastures because they couldn't afford to live. I mean, we've got a very London-centric, working environment and job market. So if you're not living in Wimbledon, 30 minutes from all the offices, then you're immediately cast off as unsuitable for the job. Yeah, it just
So the hamster wheels are working overtime, and we're back with Eve Tawfik. We were talking about why people are leaving the UK, maybe with cheaper lives in Asia and so on and so forth.
yes.
Talk to me about why you think they're leaving and where are the most popular destinations?
So the most popular destinations at the minute, you're looking at Hong Kong, South Korea, Spain actually is one, Thailand. A lot of people are going to Thailand, and it's not just for the sun and the sea, even though that's a big draw. But it's because they've got great economies, great job markets, and they're able to get that work-life balance. Even Tokyo, which a few years ago we all know that, the production output compared to workload was terrible in Japan. But actually now I think things are turning around, and it's becoming quite a desirable destination for
It's a
expats.
phenomenal. A lot of my working career has been with Japan, and I love working with them. Some of the biggest companies there, including the major broadcasters and advertising agencies. And when I first went, it was about 120 yen to the pound. It's now about 200 yen to the pound. So what used to be seen as a very expensive country is incredibly reasonable, and some of the
Yes.
best food and the lifestyle I have had in Japan. So I can certainly see that. So do you see this then as a temporary blip, or is there a deeper structural problem for the UK economy and society?
Let's not forget the onsens quickly. Everybody loves a good onsen.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Never forget that. It's got to be good.
I think this is becoming a bit of a disease for Britain. I think it's unlivable. I think the weather's miserable. I think the prices are too high. The wages are too low. Jobs aren't that attractive towards people. Companies are looking for unicorns. You've got to have 10 years experience, but also be 25 and as I said, live in Wimbledon. It's just not realistic. And I think people are getting tired of it. They want to live their lives and they want to live their lives now because quite frankly, we're not getting out of here alive. So let's enjoy things. Let's go for it. And I think with younger people, especially, there's a big exodus of talented younger people who are looking to leave the UK. Prices on property are absolutely terrible. I mean, I don't know many people on 25 grand who can afford to get themselves on the property ladder without inheritance being involved, and that shouldn't be the case.
No,
So
that's very clear. So look, as a journalist, you've covered these themes across many different outlets. What stories
yes,
or data has surprised you most about the UK's cost of living crisis? And more importantly, on a sort of positive note, how might policy changes, I don't know, on taxes, housing, or NHS funding, how might they reverse this trend?
I'm not really sure, I'm not sure it can be reversed. A lot of people are saying populism is the answer. A lot of people are looking to reform. There's been quite an uptick in support for reform. Labour did promise us that they would be sorting this out, but the job market's never been so bad since they've been in power. The NI increases on companies have led to a lot of redundancy. I think if we sorted out the NI issue, we can potentially get more people into the workplace. I think AI has a lot to answer for when it comes to certain jobs. AI is a great tool and it's very helpful. I know you yourself have
I'm
an
determined to put
interest.
the AI into Britain. You know that
That's
as
it.
a future. But you're right. It's understanding that it's both a threat and an opportunity, and that's what you need to do. Is how do we harness it? It's a great co-pilot, but understanding how it can be the co-pilot, that's the secret.
But we need to change, I think, as well, the way we're looking at hiring people, the way that jobs are structured. People don't want to sit in offices anymore. That the pandemic has forever changed that. I don't care how many sweeties companies offer for people to be drawn back into the office again. When I have been back in offices, they've been quiet, they've been desolate. I might as well be at home in my Lilo and Stitch hoodie, chilling, quite frankly, and not spend £80 on a train fare.
Well,
And
this is the problem.
you know,
The mindset of people has really changed, and this is it. They're used to not going in. They don't have to waste 2 hours a day just traveling to an office. They're very comfortable at home. So the way that we do work does make a difference. But these key issues like the economic exodus, the health access struggles, the awareness gaps that we've talked about, how do you think that's going to shape the next decade? And how can we in the media help drive change?
I have grave concerns that things are going to get worse before they get better. As I said before, I think as the media, we need to be responsible as usual with our reporting. I think we need to be more proactive in pushing for truth, as you say. I think we need to be more proactive in speaking to government and getting answers from government. And when they give us answers, questioning on why. Well, you're saying one thing, but actually, what we're seeing statistically is X, Y, Z. Why is that? Where are our tax, pounds going? What's happening here? So I think that needs to happen. As part of the media, I think we need to be seen less as the villain, less as the people who are sneaking in the bushes with secret cameras in our glasses, and more as the people who want to help. We want to get the word out there, tell other people's stories, gather as many stories as we can and get them out there to the point where they cannot be ignored. I want to get, a flood of women, maybe flood isn't the right word in this context, who have endometriosis and get them in the right places, get them speaking and make changes.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, the more voices we have on board, the more stories we can tell. I think hopefully the more difference we can make. But when it comes to leaving the country, the UK needs to think about how it can be desirable again as a place to live because even its residents don't want to live here. And Brexit as well, a lot of expats are now seeking residency in France and Spain because they don't want to be here. They've paid the money, they've gone through the rigmarole, and they have become resident instead of staying here.
Yeah, and I think it's so important, and a number of people have pointed out, look, we have a responsibility in the media, if you like. We have a voice. It can be heard by however many it might happen to be. But I always say, look, it's not on party political lines. I try to avoid that. I try to provide balance. But these are issues that affect everybody, any color, creed, political persuasion, it's irrelevant. What we need to do is to recognize there are people at the end of all these policies. And I always say, look, people understand things cost money. So if you're going to say, look, let's increase the NHS, we need to get better access and so on and so forth. What you need to do is the electorate's not stupid. You need to turn and say, it does cost money. Where's that money going to come from? And just
Mhm.
recognize the commercial realities of that. But get away from party politics. And it's Rupert Lowe's recently said, look, the party, political parties are dead. He doesn't believe in that. What we need to look at are those key policies, but have a sensible discussion. Because so often, and debate gets shut down because of party political lines, and that's got to be wrong.
Exactly. And that's what I mean about Kemi not listening to the backbenchers. That's not happening. And the backbenchers do have stuff to say on occasion, and they are valid points. I'm trying to think of one right now, which was relating to making Britain, I think it was, sorry, I don't want to, yeah, Steve Reed was talking about streamlining house building rules around train and tram stations, pushing a target of 1.5 million new homes by 2029. So, yeah, on paper, that sounds great, but what about the infrastructure surrounding that? Have we got the infrastructure to deal with that many homes? Why are we spending money on building, building, building? Get Britain building. Why can't we get Britain healthy? Why can't we get Britain earning money? Why
Yeah.
can't we get Britain actually enjoying where they're living? Why can't we sort out the dire state of mental health treatment in this country in a place where people are suffering with anxiety and depression at an astronomical rate, an increasing rate as well.
Yeah,
So
no, you're
that's what
absolutely.
I
But
think.
well, the short answer is we should be doing all of it. And what we need
Yes.
to do when people are looking at it, get the panel of experts. It's not about people with titles and so on and so forth. All these people jumping from one party to the other, having criticized each other. I always say, look, trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback. Well, trust in politicians at the moment is at an all-time low simply because they make all these promises, they rubbish everybody else, and then they go and jump into bed with them the next minute. It seems they put their career ahead of principles. We're going to continue shining a spotlight on all these issues. It is really important. If you do have issues that are of concern to you, do get in touch. But for now, Eve Tawfik, thank you so much for coming on the
Thank
Andrew Eborn
you.
Show.
Yes, thank you so much. Lovely to see you as always, and lovely to see you all. Hi, I'm Eve Tawfik, and I will be joining you tonight on the Andrew Eborn Show. Always a pleasure. Follow Andrew on X, on Facebook, and follow his show. Always great topics, always something interesting. And most importantly, we're talking about the truth. There's, no sugarcoating here, and that's what we love about the Andrew Eborn Show. I'm Eve Tawfik. I'm a UK journalist, and buy my book, Bitter Sequins. It's available on Amazon.